I grew up in New Jersey.
I was born in South Africa.
Many of my friends had a much easier experience than I did. Then one sister got married, and then the next sister got married. It's hard because people expect, oh, you're the oldest, you're gonna get married first. I never thought in a million years that he would be across the globe. So when I went to South Africa, I'm just gonna make him laugh. That's all I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna make him laugh when I get off the plane. I promise this happened. I got on the plane, looked like a normal human, and about a half hour before landing, I changed into a full set of pajamas. They were like a matching set. I only wear skirts, so I was wearing a skirt on top of it. And because apparently it was gonna be a date in Meir's eyes, I wore 5-inch stilettos.
You're crazy.
I was like, oh wow, that's like crazy. And I just burst out laughing. It was like, it was a lot also, because it's like, I mean, I've been talking to her and like, you know, I did like love her. That was like my first thing, and she bounced out a little bit.
It was exciting.
And then I was like, oh wow, I don't even know if I've got enough energy to keep up with her.
And pretty much by the end of that trip, we knew we were gonna get married.
Welcome back to another special episode of Stories of Hope. Before we begin, I have to tell you what I saw on my Flash Deals app from PZ Deals today. It will blow your mind. Flash sales are all the unbelievable price drops on numerous products. And when I clicked on them, I saw an oven. I didn't even know you could get an oven on PZ Deals. Beats AirPods, which I've been keeping an eye out for. A laptop, a package of t-shirts, and a huge case of water bottles, which was actually sold out because the deal was just too great for it to stay there. PZ Deals has everything. And what I love about PZ Deals is they have categories on their app. And there's home, there's clothing, there's toys, there's groceries. Oh, I forgot to mention, they even had Razzles. Remember that candy? You chew it, it turns into gum? Ancient, I know, but they had it. And so if there's something you're looking for, you can click the categories and it's so organized. It's so super organized. So you find the things you need and you find the things that you didn't even know you needed for bargain prices. You're probably buying these items elsewhere and you're losing money and time. So download the PZ Deals app, because with PZ Deals, you'll never pay full price again. Hello, it's me again, Tzipora Grodko, your host of Stories of Hope. I am so glad that you came back to join us this week, because as always, we have a special episode for you. We are featuring Tali and Meir. Tali from New Jersey, Meir from South Africa. Stay tuned to hear their wild story. You will laugh, you will nod, and you will definitely feel hopeful. Hi, I'm Tzipora Grodko, and this is the Stories of Hope podcast. I'm really, really excited to have the two of you in today from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And Tali, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you grew up.
So I grew up in New Jersey. I'm the oldest of 4. It's 3 girls and then a boy. Pretty like middle of the road family. And I went to seminary, then I went to Stern, went to nursing school, started working. In that time, moved to the Heights for a little bit before COVID came back to Jersey. And also amidst that time, started dating, which was quite the experience. I was kind of enjoying myself, but then one sister got married, and then the next sister got married. And it was quite the journey, but we can cover that.
I'm really, really excited. Wow. So from Fair Lawn, New Jersey, Stern, nursing school, stopped everything to be here today. So thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, and somehow ended up with someone from South Africa. So tell us a little bit about your background.
I was born in South Africa. I grew up in South Africa. I'm the oldest of four boys. Also very much middle of the road, but very strong emphasis on halacha and like just making sure that we follow halacha in the home, out of the home, and very strong like Kashkafa connection there. For those who are watching from South Africa, I went to Hirschlines and then Yeshiva Gedola after school. So then after that, I ended up I was working while studying accounts, and I ended up running Camp Kesher in South Africa for a period of about 4 years. And then in between, I was dating, I was looking, didn't really find anyone so much there. And so one of my friends basically pushed me onto JSwipe, and here we are.
That's always what happens. The men are like, so I met my wife, and now we're here. And I'm like, wait, you're gonna mess up my whole episode.
It was not that easy. It was not that simple.
Yeah.
So we're gonna hear all the fun details, but I'm actually really curious to hear, what does middle of the road in South Africa look like? Because I feel like it's very, very different than America, and middle of the road is always subjective to everyone's community.
Well, just before that was one of the reasons we were able to date, because of these staunch differences. Because in America, we're very descriptive with our hashkafas. They're Beis Yaakov, they're yeshivish, they're modern yeshivish, they're modern Orthodox machmir. That didn't exist there.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to put a label on it in American terms, as Tali was explaining. We, in essence, we follow halacha, but we don't go luchum on everything. So in South Africa, there's one Beth Din. We followed the Beth Din hashkafa on everything. We didn't keep Chalav Yisrael. We didn't go Mahadran. It was what the Beth Din says is okay, and we went with that. In terms of we kept Shabbos, we kept kashrut kehalchasa as the halacha requires. In terms of dress wise, I think that's probably more where we were a little bit more different in general. On Shabbos, like I wouldn't have an issue wearing like a coloured shirt to shul and smart pants. So it's a bit more like that. We weren't like set into, you have to wear like black and white. We were a lot more, that's the middle of the road. We follow halacha. It also didn't stop me from speaking to people who weren't necessarily keeping everything. So I have friends across the spectrum who are from like very staunch, more like Haredi, very, very religious, to friends who don't necessarily keep Shabbos and kosher, and friends who are working on keeping Shabbos and kosher, and friends who are like me, who are middle of the road and willing to like talk to anyone and go with anyone. Yeah.
So I feel like there's more like the engagement with diversity is more natural in a place like South Africa.
Yeah, I feel it's very much taken for granted in terms of South Africa happens to be a community that has a lot of Baalei Tshuva in my parents' generation. So very often, you grew up with that level of understanding that like people are also growing to get to where they are. So there's no reason to like isolate somebody because they aren't necessarily there, because that's where, your parents oftentimes in South Africa were not, growing up, from. And so that does become like quite a big difference where everybody has an understanding. Okay, there are also people in most families in South Africa who aren't necessarily from a halacha. And so you learn to engage with them and you learn to bring them in. There's a lot more of like a welcoming community in terms of we really, really try to bring everyone in and get them involved. So the Shabbos Project, which started in South Africa about forever, was very much an attempt to like engage the wider community. Let's bring everybody in who's not necessarily Shomer Shabbos. Let's actually get them to come, keep Shabbos, feel the beauty of it. And it really is an amazing community from that perspective, where you are able to see that and understand that just because somebody isn't necessarily holding where I'm holding or where I am, there's still the capacity to get there. And it's up to us to like show them the love as a fellow Yid to get them there. Yeah,
I love that. And I feel like this is an appetizer to our episode. I know I'm going a little off topic because it's just so important. Like we sing songs, Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael, we say Am Yisrael Chai, and there's a lot of trending, whether it's psukim or songs that we sing that indicate we're all one. And we need to act the way we're singing, the way we're reading, as someone that's been brought up that way there, and now as someone that lives here. What would you say is something that people can practice to really internalize that concept, where we don't have to segregate people based on their isolated religious levels, but rather we can try to be more integrative?
So I think one of the biggest things over here I would say is starting off like simple. We can say, okay, well, everybody just jump in and start like finding people and trying to bring them in and trying to like get close to them. But I think probably one of the biggest things that struck me when I first came here is just the concept of saying good Shabbos to everyone you see in the street. I think that can be something like small, everybody can take on. And I know that's how I grew up. Like I'd walk down the street, I'd say good Shabbos to everyone. Everyone would say good Shabbos back. And it's like, it really like makes it feels so warm, and like, it seems like a very small thing, but, saying good Shabbos to someone who's not necessarily, dressed like you for Shabbos, but, they're still walking to shul, or even if they're getting out of their car outside shul to go into shul, just saying good Shabbos to them acknowledges, hey, you're also a Yid, I love you as a Yid, Shabbat Shalom, and I wish good upon you. And it just helps like strengthen that, at least starting with something small, so to speak, before moving on to something, bigger in terms of like, let's actually all get together, invite people for Shabbos who aren't necessarily there, but, you want to kind of welcome them in, give them the experience of Shabbos, of Zmiros and all of that. At least starting somewhere small, I'd say. Let's start with good Shabbos.
It's specific, it's tangible. You described why it's so important. It's a form of connection. Yeah. It's a form of connection in an intimate way where you're saying, I see you, I value you, and I want to share my warmth with you. So thank you so much for sharing. After that commercial, now we'll jump right back in. So Tali, you mentioned that you're one of 4 sisters.
3 girls and then a boy.
3 girls and a boy. It sounds like they started dating and got married in a more simpler fashion than you did. Can you please describe to us a little bit of what your dating experience was like?
Sure. So I finished Stern, and I think amidst that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to start dating. That's when most of my friend group probably started dating. I definitely had a few friends get married before that, but most of my friends started dating around then. Many of my friends had a much easier experience than I did, where they just go places and be like, oh, I'm going to marry that guy. And they did. That's not what happened. I really was like jumping around. I would send out my profile. I kind of was toggling between 2 worlds of like kind of growing up in the more middle of the road from level, where it's like, maybe you should go places and meet someone on your own. But I also came to the point where I had a lot of friends who were in the more Beis Yaakov world. And I had a lot of family who was in that world where it was like, shidduchim. Like shidduchim proper, you're going to do a resume and all those things. So it was really this balance of, well, how can I still be frum if I'm going to all these singles events? But how can I also get my resume out? Because not everyone I know is in that world.
Sorry to interject. When you say, how can I still be frum if I'm going to these singles events, do you mean how can I present myself as a certain profile, or you mean like literally frum?
So I think the the former of what you said, because people would go, at least in my experience, and be like, I saw this girl at this event, and that's the crowd it's attracting. And she's trying to portray herself as this, but she's going to meet someone on her own. How are you going to do that? So it was a lot of that. People would be like, well, I can't be seen with this crowd. I was kind of going between both, and I was like, okay, let's see what happens.
And sorry to interrupt you. What would you say to someone that has those judgments, who says like, oh, I can't go to events because that's for those kinds of people, or I can't go onto Shabbatons because for whatever reason, my family, my background, my community is not comfortable with that, and I don't want to be categorized in that box. What might you tell those people who are having those judgments and insecurities?
So I think that the most important thing is to realize that you're never going to get it right in everyone's mind. So you have to do what works for you. And that plays a big role in how we ended up meeting. Because aside from going to singles events and sending out my resume, you went online and met someone that's really not from. But yet I wanted to get married. So you're not doing everything you can to get married, but are you? Oh, you're not doing it the way we want you to do it. So I think the most important is to really be true to yourself and say, what is my goal? What do I want? And if I'm not going to do something, or I am going to pursue something, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
And I think throughout my experience, especially of having younger siblings getting married first, you have to do what works for you. And you're never going to be 100% in everyone's eyes, but you don't want to be with someone who doesn't view it as that.
Right. And so the reality is, in our pursuit to do what's best for us, we end up attracting someone that appreciates who we are.
Exactly.
And it's so concerning and sad when someone's making decisions that are best for other people, because it's the illusion that you're attracting the right person, when the reality is you're not being who you are. So you're actually not attracting the right person best for you. Maybe you're attracting the right person best for them, or what you think should be best for you.
Exactly. It's very difficult. I remember I was at a Shabbos meal with someone, and we talked about JSwipe, where we ultimately, where Meir and I ultimately met. And they're like, the guy I will marry will not be on JSwipe. And I was like, okay. I don't know what you want me to do with that. Like, I don't know. I don't have the right answer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone knows. And I think if we all knew, then everyone would be like, okay, we got this. But it's a very difficult thing. And I think that it's kind of hard to break the normal boundaries or community norms that are instilled upon us, but we didn't necessarily choose.
So difficult. That's what we're trying to do through our podcast. And we never say one way is the right way, but rather there are multiple ways. And what happens when we open up doors for opportunity, when we open up doors the right way for the right person, challenge people to think differently, to consider, I know people always say like, be more open. I want to say like, welcome multiple options, welcome opportunities. Before you jump into what led you to consider JSwipe when it was so uncharacteristic of your background, I want to know if you can talk a little bit about what it was like to have your younger sisters get married.
It was definitely not easy. And I think that it's hard because people expect, oh, you're the oldest or you're the older sibling, you're going to get married first. So no matter what, it always came back to that. I'd be seeing someone in the community in the supermarket after like a long day of work. Oh, like, how are you doing? Your sister's married, right? Yes, thank you. Like, and I think it always came back to, well, would you date someone like your brother-in-law? Every conversation that revolved around dating and marriage came back to the fact that my younger siblings were married. It was very much so, well, this guy might not be for you, but your younger siblings are married. So like, you should probably give him a chance. And I very much so over my dating process continuously tried to refine and condense what I was looking for. So for me, I came up with a bunch of things that was like, these are my hard no's. And if someone meets these requirements or has these things and values, then I will give it a shot. And it worked for me. It ultimately ended up being one of the reasons we were able to date, because otherwise, if I was back to, the mindset of, oh, this guy just has to look whatever way, it would have never worked. But it was very, very, very difficult. It's hard because aside from being the older sibling, I was also the oldest. So especially for the sister who got married first, it was a lot of firsts for my parents also. And it's like, wait, well, something's out of order. Something doesn't make sense. And they're trying to toggle and balance. We're really, really happy for our daughter who's getting married. But we also have a daughter who is not yet married. And people are saying comments to her. And also, just because she was getting married, my dating life didn't stop. But it didn't really pick up either from it. So people would always say, oh, it opens up the shefa for you. And I'm like, that's not the right statement. Like, it's you do you.
Yeah. It's there's a few things coming to my mind, and I have to bring myself back because I can relate in different ways. There's a few challenges, and I want to ask your opinion on them. The first challenge is, unfortunately, did you feel like when your younger siblings got married, it aged you?
100%. I was 26 when my first younger sister got married, and I was 28 when the second one got married. We didn't know each other yet, so I don't know why I'm looking at him for validation of it. But somewhere around there. And people jumped on the bandwagon, but not on the way where they were like, oh, maybe we have a suggestion for you. It became a continuous inquiry of like, would you date someone like your brother-in-law? Oh, like, you shouldn't feel so bad because like this other sister that you're like, they've been dating for so long, because one of my sisters knew her husband since high school. So you shouldn't feel bad because they've known it. So you definitely saw this coming. And like, people forever would ask the questions that, those questions that people probably shouldn't ask, and say like, oh, how do you feel about it? like in middle of everyone.
Mm,
What would you want me to say to that?
right.
How do you feel about the fact that they're getting married? Or how do you feel about the fact that they're doing this? Or, you shouldn't really worry because even though you're X, they're Y. And like Y is better for whatever reason because it leads them to get married first.
Yeah. We don't need everyone to be the on-site therapist or Gandhi
Exactly.
or comforter. If asked, it's available, but if not asked, sometimes it can do the opposite. And what would you tell someone listening who is the oldest and they have their younger siblings, they watch their younger siblings get married, they're listening and they're like, yes, I feel that. What might you tell them that would be comforting and encouraging?
I think the most important thing is to remember that you are who you are. You are a valuable person, regardless of your relationship status. And you're allowed to be a human. You're allowed to feel upset. You're allowed to feel happy. You're allowed to feel everything at the same time. And I think through my process, I had to do certain things that were good for me, that weren't necessarily the most family-wide accepted in terms of going to certain events. And Baruch Hashem, now we're all very happy and great. And that's amazing. But it was a very difficult process. And I don't think it's fair necessarily to take that experience away from someone and say, it's just not your time yet. Like, for me, that wasn't a very happy answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think the important thing is you're a human, you're an adult, you're a whole person without someone else.
Yeah. So well said. And piggybacking off of that, I want to highlight the compassion that's needed. And I want to validate anyone in this position to bring to light the idea that there are so many firsts that a daughter or a son can dream about as the oldest in their home. I can't wait to, and they don't even conceptualize it as the first one, but it's this knowingness of course, like I'm going to get married and then my younger siblings are going to come to my wedding and then I'm going to have the baby and my younger siblings are going to be the aunt and uncle and I'm going to boss them around and they're going to watch my kids. And something that I try to highlight a lot, one of the challenges of navigating through matchmaking, singlehood, is that there's a lot of loss. And when someone is not the first in that area, there's loss of being the first and thinking, well, I thought that was like my rite of passage. And then when you watch a younger sibling have a child and you think like, well, they had a boy, well, I'll be the first to have a girl. And you're not. Right. And and I just want people to appreciate it's not that there's this simplicity in being the first, but rather it's this experience you always dreamed you'd have. And there's this unusual adjustment to life just not turning out the way you expected it to be.
100%. And I think that's very relatable for a lot of people because one of the ways I kind of navigated everything was that I spoke to other people who went through this. And they kind of were saying the same thing I was saying. It was like, it might happen, it might not happen, but you're a human and you're a person and you have life experiences and you have this. And sometimes it will always come back to, well, now I'm the aunt or now I am the second or third or whatever. But you have people in your corner. And I think that's the biggest deal that helped me get through everything. Because it was like, okay, maybe those in the street can't understand, or maybe my parents can't understand, or maybe whoever can't understand. But there are people who do get it. Mm. And there are other people who, while this is, it all worked out.
Yeah.
It was definitely very hard. But there are people who really, really stood in my corner who were like, okay, like we can do this because we all can do this.
Yes. And if you don't have people standing in your corner, me, Tali, Meir, Nissan's in the back. He hates when I give him a shout out. He's the camera guy. We're all standing in your corner. You can always reach out. Thank you for being so vulnerable. That's where the change happens. And I think that's what we all need. So tell me how old you were, and Meir, how old were you when you met?
I was 28, right?
Yeah.
And you were?
I was 25.
25. So Meir was 25. You were 28. You were struggling through all this turmoil. And Meir, you were?
So I was in the process. I'd finished off my time with Camp Kesher. I'd been doing a lot of things behind the scenes. I'd been looking on and off for someone, and I'd had really no luck where I was. So I decided Israel's the best way to go, and I'd prepared myself to make Aliyah. I'd had everything in, and my due date for Aliyah was going to be in September. We met in February, and my due date for Aliyah was going to be that September. And so yeah, I was getting ready to go. I'd decided, okay, I tried my luck with the girls in South Africa. Nobody seemed interested. Okay, I'll move on. I'll Mashana Makel, Mashana Mazel, as they say. And so I was that was really where I was at that point in time.
And you speak about that very casually. Did you have any hesitations about moving to another country, another culture? I mean, I know it's Israel, it's our home, but
I didn't have so many hesitations, unfortunately, and we've all seen the news lately in terms of with South Africa. While growing up in the South African Jewish community, I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. It's the most amazing and incredible Jewish community. And being in that community, it also shielded me from a lot of what was going on outside in South Africa. The community has built a complete security apparatus in order to protect itself. And unfortunately, in the rest of the country, at least when I was in school, there were power outages all the time, dealing with water outages every week or so. And there were a lot of issues that I just, from a crime perspective, going out in the street at night was just, you couldn't really do it. Even like kids walking in the street alone is not really done so much just because it's so dangerous. And I decided for myself that wasn't where I would like to bring up kids, as incredible as the Jewish community is. And if I could supplant the Jewish community anywhere else, I'd move there in a heartbeat. But so from that point of view, I was always going to leave. And anybody who I was dating, there was also the prerequisites of, we're not staying. We want to, make Aliyah and go to Eretz Yisrael. So that was more like, I wasn't hesitant about it. A lot of my friends had already moved there. My brothers had made Aliyah also, so I was ready to go. It was my time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Tali, tell us a little bit about what happened.
So I had been doing my thing with dating, going to the singles events, going all over, and trying to figure out where was I going to find my person. And I was like, I had been on and off JSwipe, but continuously with those comments that I was mentioning before about, well, I don't know. And I was like, you know what? It's now COVID. And I'm Zoom dating guys who live like an hour away. I'm just going to go on JSwipe and see how else I can date people. So I don't know how many people are familiar with JSwipe, but you could either have like a 250-mile radius or a worldwide radius. And I'm not a geography major, but I'm like, I've dated as many people I'm going to date in New York as possible. And I wasn't dating that often. I'm going to marry someone from like LA. Like my person is not here, but I'm like 250 miles, that's not even LA. So I made the filters worldwide. And I was like, okay, let's just see what happens. Like, this probably isn't going to work because everyone's telling me that like from people are not on JSwipe. So, well, let's just see what happens.
And I'm just going to pause you there. We'll be right back to our episode. But first, you have to check out Pizza Biza, making fresh hot pizzas on the spot by their professional chefs, indoor or outdoor in their pizza ovens, meat or dairy, plus full catering around the tri-state area and Florida. Specializing in events with several hundred people with no lines. You heard right. Full menu. You have to check them out on Instagram at Pizza Biza and visit them at pizzabiza.com. Pizza's my favorite food, so please invite me, Pizza Biza, on Instagram and check them out at pizzabiza.com. These are the people you want to call. Pizza Biza, I'll see you at my next event. For so long, we've been taught to believe that you need to wait for things to change in order for life to get better. and you deserve to live the life of your dreams before things change. And that's what Live Better Academy is here for, enabling you to enrich your life by exploring the 5 core areas that contribute to your fulfillment and happiness. This course is here to make sure that you no longer need to wait. Exploring spirituality, health and wellness, recreation and soul, social support and environment, and your profession and ambition, my course helps you understand what you're missing, explore any gaps that need areas of improvement, and truly understand what you need to do to create the life that you deserve. It's a 5-week course, so you have to be fully committed. But the easy part is that it's all virtual. You can access it anywhere and anytime. It includes pre-recorded classes, intense coursework material to take the information, turn it into application, and ultimately transformation, and a live group class, which includes me and your peers. It's truly extraordinary, and I want you to be a part of it. So if you're interested, click the link below to schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if it's the right fit for you, or send a quick text message to the number below to schedule your free 15-minute consultation. I cannot wait to meet you and be on this journey with you so that you can finally live life better. For those that aren't familiar with JSwipe, JSwipe is, I think, the #1 Jewish dating app worldwide. And the way it works is through an algorithm. There's filters. You can filter Orthodox, traditional, conservative, kosher, depending on where someone is holding.
It's also willing to convert.
Or willing to convert. It's an app that's made probably for the, I mean, I'm not as familiar with how it works, but it tries to filter towards all different people, all different backgrounds, and there's an algorithm. So it sends you a person, says a little bio, and the basic plan is if you're interested in the person, you can press check, and then only if the other person randomly is interested in you, because the app doesn't let you know unless you pay for that option, then does the other person get suggested. So a lot of it seems sort of like random, I guess we'll say, for scientific terms. Mm-hmm. And that's the way the app works. And then if the people connect through the app, they get a notification and they can reach out and message each other.
No, that's pretty much exactly how it works.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, let's just see what happens. So we matched. And one of the biggest, I guess, hardships with JSwipe and things that I was experiencing in dating in New York is that it literally just says Orthodox. Orthodox is a huge realm. And I was very specific when I was dating of what hashkafa I was looking for. Not from a piece of paper, but in terms of actual practicality. Like, how is this person practicing? What, were they able to do? Where were they holding? That was a really, really big deal for me and a very big hardship for me with dating here. I felt like a lot of people, you became more firm, but if you didn't grow up in this background, then you can't be classified as this. So you're automatically this, but you're not this. So it was very, very difficult. So we matched on JSwipe, and I was like, this is just going to be a joke, because the beginning of your profile was Shomer Shabbos and Shomer Kashrus. And I'm like, it already says Orthodox. Like, something's up here. So I also had established throughout dating a bunch of rules for myself. And I think the biggest thing was I want to treat others how I want to be treated. So I was not a fan of, I had been ghosted before. I had kind of been like in conversations with people and then nothing. I had gone on dates and never heard back.
Losers.
So, exactly. No, it's exactly
and
that feeling.
Disrespectful. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to respond to messages if I get one or if I get any, and we'll go from there. But I'm going to be respectful to whoever it is. South Africa has a different vernacular for certain things. So Meir messaged me with a very slang line of "how's it," which in South Africa is
represent. How's it means hi, how are you? It's how we greet each other in general. I just want to preface it, like, in general, when I'd been on JSwipe a few times, and usually I hadn't matched like maybe one or two here and there. This time I kind of had matched with a lot of people, so I didn't feel I had a lot of time to like write out a whole like introduction. So I just wrote "how's it" and pretty much auto-filled every single conversation
Yeah,
and saw who bit.
He's defending his one-liner. He's like, I got game, but I was tired. And I wasn't play cool.
Exactly. So I was like, fine, I have to follow my rule and I have to respond. So we started having a whole conversation. And a lot of the initial conversation was me vetting to see whether we were like hushkuffically compatible, with a background of I had been speaking to guys who identified as Orthodox and weren't necessarily Shomer Shabbos or things like that. So I was very hyper aware of I needed to cover these things before he kind of
Amazing. Save yourself time because you can't always know the right answers.
Exactly. So at the end, Meir was like, we should probably move to WhatsApp because we've exhausted JSwipe and we've been on here for a very long time. And I've already deleted the app because I think that, we're going to move forward. So I'm like, okay, fine. He goes, here's my number, text this number. I was like, wait, this is weird. Like, that's not how I've done things before. But within a split second of him giving me the number, he sent a different number. I was like, this guy is playing games. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired. I've done this before. If you want a number, you can text me here because I see those are two different numbers. And he goes, just so you know, there's a whole Jewish world outside of America. I gave you the country code to South Africa.
Oh, that's funny. Wow. Okay. So things are going well. You end up WhatsApping each other. You're still in South Africa. You're still in
New
Jersey. What happens next?
So we had it had been COVID at the time. The world had kind of started opening up again. The South African doctors were finding new variants every other day and publishing it to the world. So we were getting shut down by every other country because our doctors were actually telling the world when we found things. So what ended up happening is, so we were talking, it was going very well. We decided to move on to daily calls. So calls in the morning, like when I woke up, calls as I was like going to sleep. They lasted about an hour long each time. So very long, sometimes like very heavy in-depth calls, sometimes just like fun, jokey calls. That really like a very different dating experience because it's very hard to hide who you are if you like having that much contact with someone, even though it's not necessarily face to face. There's a lot more, it gets to the point where you can't like say you're going to get caught in something. So
there's
it just
a lot
pays
more
to be honest
because you're on a call. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were really looking for a way for us to be able to meet up. So we were trying, I think that April, there was like rumors it was going to open up. And they were going to open up. South Africa found a variant. I can't remember what it was, and they shut it down. Then we were looking at June going into July, and they postponed again, like, coming up to it, we were really excited. It's going to happen. And they shut it down. It was like the beginning of June at that time. And it was Erev Shavuos actually. And Tali called me and she's like, look, we have to like decide, are we actually going to continue this? It's like really difficult. It's like we keep like trying to meet each other, but clearly Hashem has other plans. Like we've really, really made an effort. It's not like we didn't, we were ready, Unfortunately, I couldn't fly to the US at all, but the US could fly to South Africa. And we were really trying to get this off the ground. And then like I had over Shavuos, I was basically like, talking to a few of my rabbis, also like trying to like gauge what their feelings were. And they said, look, you haven't really had any success here. Like, if you really think this is worthwhile, then pursue it fully. So
yeah, I'm going to say, some guys are like, oh, she lives in Brooklyn. I live in Lakewood. I don't want to drive in. Yeah. Meir flew in from South Africa. Oh, I know things worked out a little bit different, but take that into consideration.
It was definitely an experience. I think it was also hard because, I already had this background of people being like, well, online dating is just weird. And like, how do you know? And it could be this and that. And we were video calling, so I had seen him before. But while it's hard to hide who you are on video call because you're kind of forced to talk, aside from going to like the fun activities and the nice restaurants, you're kind of really, really forced to talk. But at the same token, it was, well, is this real? Like, in person, people can be very different, which is a big part of our story
Yeah.
also. But it was very difficult. I was also saying no to other dates. But at the same time, and I'm like, maybe I'll just go on this one date. I had called Meir at some point when the first singles event post-COVID or in the middle of COVID was happening. And I'm like, I'm going to go to this event because this isn't going anywhere. So he's like, okay, like, I guess I can't say no, don't go.
It's confusing because you
Yeah.
couldn't practically meet each other because of COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet you want to meet someone and you're trying to navigate working with what you have on both ends of the world.
Exactly.
It's so
Yeah.
confusing.
It was so weird. And then by Erev Shavuos, we were on a call and I said, listen, I'm going on a Shavuos program. Like, we need to, after Shavuos, like, you need to decide whether we can do this or not. Because hashkafically, it's just, we're very compatible. But for both of us, it's not going to sit well to just date forever. And you need to talk to your Rabbanim. I need to figure out what I want to do. In South Africa, because of the time difference, Yantif ended earlier. So the minute Yantif ended here, which is, it's the summer, so Yantif probably ended like 9:30, I got a message from Meir being like, we really need to talk. I turned to my friend who I was with on a Shavuos program and was like, it's just over. But my friend's like, doesn't really matter because like you guys aren't really dating. So,
Wow. Okay. So what happened?
So then, we ended up. I told her, look, like I really want to continue. I think we need to like pursue this, and let's really go for it. But let's set the hard deadline at the end of August. Like if we cannot make a plan at the end of July, I think we said to like meet by the end of August, then unfortunately we're going to have to call it because there really is no way to do it at that point in time. Like the world really wasn't opening, especially for South Africa. So then it was, I think, the middle of July or so. They opened up. It was a brief, I think, 5-week window towards the end of August, and so she flew in to meet me at the end of August, and that was for a week or so. And at that point in time, like I took off from work, and we did 12-hour marathon dates every single day. Like Shabbos I didn't spend Shabbos in the hotel with her, but like basically Shabbos day I walked through and we spent the day together, and then
We're trying to like
carried
compact
on. Yeah.
months and months and months in this 1 week period. What was that like for you, Tali, flying in?
it was crazy. Also, my dad was with us. So he was on our first date. He was with us that whole Shabbos. It was very interesting.
How come he came along?
I had told my parents about Meir, or they kind of figured it out because they saw me on like very intense video chats. And at some point, I'm like, I'm going to go to South Africa and I'm going to go meet this person. And they're like, well, you're not going alone because I live in New Jersey. I don't know anything about South Africa. I had done my fair share of travel, but like never over there. I only knew of it when I heard about it in seminary. And I'm like, I'm going to go. And my parents are like, find a friend, which was very difficult because I didn't want to just bring one friend. I needed two so that they can hang out and I can give this guy a fair chance. So my dad's like, you're not going alone. I'm going to come with you. I can use a very nice getaway. So I'm like, okay. And just all the details of, well, what are we going to do with my dad while he's there? Like, he's going to pick us up from the airport. Like, you're going to pick just me up from the airport? Like, that's weird. And like, it's South Africa. Like, I had asked Meir in advance, I'm like, what is South Africa like? Is it like the movie Tarzan? Because I couldn't liken it to anything. And he's like, no, it's more like The Lion King. So I didn't know what to expect. So I was just really nervous. Also because I had done my fair share of dating from my house. And you can tell a person's reactions. And some of those reactions were better and some of them were worse. And all I could just imagine was getting off the plane after speaking to this guy for a good amount of time. My dad's in the background and it just falls flat. I was terrified. So, and now I'm going. And I had made Meir basically promise, like, if at any point during the trip he wasn't interested or, you know, things weren't working out, that he would end it. But in the back of my mind, my dad's there. This can be a really huge crush to my ego.
Yeah.
If anything happens. And, you know, you can tell right off the bat if someone's interested. So I was like, you know what? I don't have a great track record with like dating in general, so I'm just going to make him laugh. That's all I'm going to do is I'm going to make him laugh when I get off the plane. So I'm on the phone with Meir a couple weeks before I leave, and I'm like, just so you know, like, while you can break up with me if you don't think this is going to work, you have to like give me a fair shot in the airport because I'm coming off the plane from like 20 hours of flying. And he's like, no, like, I think you're going to get yourself all done up. And he's so not that type, but he was like, I think you're going to view this as a real date. And I'm like,
I was joking for the record.
I was like, no, I'm coming off the plane in pajamas. Like, it's 20 hours of flying. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I think you're going to come off the plane in heels. So I promise this happened. It's in our wedding video. I had talked to my dad. I got on the plane, looked like a normal human. And about a half hour before landing, I changed into a full set of pajamas. They were like a matching set. I only wear skirts. So I was wearing a skirt on top of it. And because apparently it was going to be a date in Meir's eyes, I wore 5-inch stilettos.
You're crazy.
So, it's in our wedding video. It really happened. My dad's like, how are we going to work this? So I went out before him. My dad filmed the whole thing. I didn't know at the time, but sent it to my mom. And my dad at that moment apparently knew that we were going to get married because I wasn't that adventurous otherwise.
And I'll pause you, Meir. What was your reaction?
I was like, oh, wow, that's like crazy. And I just burst out laughing. It was like, it was a lot also because it's like, I mean, I've been talking to her and like, you know, I did like love her in terms of like, you know, from an emotional perspective, but it was like this, now this is like materialized from my phone. It's like, you know, the character pops out of your phone. And so that was like my first thing. And she didn't just like come out. She came like she bounced out a little bit.
It was exciting.
And then I was like, oh wow, I don't even know if I've got enough energy to keep up with it.
You know, it almost sounds like there was so much fear and so much worry that maybe it was consciously or subconsciously, you can correct me, you want to make sure that you put everything out there so that you can see, this is it? Yes or no? So that I could try to protect myself as much as possible, even though this is all terrifying.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. My whole mindset throughout the dating process was, and ultimately when I ended up on JSwipe, was if after 120 I haven't found my Zivug, I'm going to be able to tell Hashem, I did everything. I did everything that I could, and this is where I'm at. So when I went to South Africa, I was like, I'm going to give it the whole shot. And you know what? It'll be fine because my dad's here. He's more chill than my mom. He's a little bit more like, oh, how was your day? Oh, okay, good. Like, go to sleep. My mom likes the more details. So it was really just, okay, we're going to do this. And it wasn't the easiest of trips. We'll get there at some point. But
no, tell us now. Tell us now.
It's very hard when you meet someone in person after you've really gotten to know them very well. Like Meir said, we had a lot of very heavy conversations. My siblings getting married first played a very large role in our relationship also. At that point, my sister also had a baby. And there was a lot going on in my personal life. I was also in grad school. I had my other sister, I think, was getting ready to get married or had just gotten married. There was a lot going on. So I get off the plane and I'm like, okay, you know what? This isn't my home turf. I don't know anyone here. I'm just going to do whatever I want. But this was Meir's home turf. And we get to a restaurant the first night and we see people and they're like, wait, are you guys dating? Like, what's going on? Oh, you come, like, you're dating? Come to this event. And I'm like, this is so much emotion at one time because we're just trying to figure out, you know, is this even something? And it was like, okay, like, where do we really pick up these conversations? Because we know each other very well, but we also are kind of starting anew.
Yeah.
So it was weird.
It was very weird. And I mean, the event happened to be the engagement party. So it was like very much, he was a very close friend of mine. And I'd said to him, I don't know if I'm going to be able to come because like Tali's in and like, you know, down there. And so like, since he saw us there, he was like making sure that she was like invited so she wouldn't feel upset coming through. And we were like busy navigating this. Yeah. So it was very interesting.
It's also a different cultural norm there because pretty much in South Africa, across all hashkafas, if you're dating someone, it's very significant and they're invited to everything. That's not so much in the hashkafa that I was.
It's like
familiar
hide in
with.
the closet.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, no one can know this is happening.
Exactly. So it was very weird when people were like coming up to us and be like, oh, like you guys are dating. And it was like, are we? We don't know.
Because it was almost like it was like your first date in a bizarre way with all this like almost like connection beforehand. It's a unique position, and I appreciate that you both gave it the time to explore where will this go and the courage, a lot of courage. What was the end of that trip? What was the end of that trip like?
So at some point, the beginning of the trip was not so fantastic. There was a lot of nerves. There was a lot of, maybe we should just end this right now, which I wanted to. If it wasn't going to work, don't keep me there. You know, I'll have fun. It's South Africa. Like, I'll go do something. My dad's here. We'll have fun. At some point, I think it was the last day, we were walking in the mall and we're like, okay, let's actually talk about this. Can we make this work? You know, I had already met a lot of people in his life because I was only going there for a limited amount of time. And, that's what it was. We were supposed to go out to dinner.
Yeah.
So Meir had this whole plan, and he said on the last day, we're going to go out to dinner with my parents and your dad. And I was like, no, we're not.
So that was the second last day though, but yeah.
I'm like, that's not how we do it in my circles. Like, we don't do that. It's not a whole family meeting until there's actually like something happening. And because we were in such a weird place, Meir had turned to me and he's like, you know, even if it doesn't work out, you'll have met some really nice people. And I'm like, okay, great. So I go back and tell my dad all this. And my dad is very chill. And he's like, it's going to be fine. Like, I don't really want to hear about this drama. Like, are we going to go to dinner or not?
Honestly, kudos to your dad. Yeah. Shout out to him.
He was like, come on, it'll be fine. So we go, and dinner was actually pretty good. The next day was our last day.
Yeah.
And the whole goal of the trip was, can we actually not get married, but can we actually continue dating? Is this something worth pursuing? And we were in the mall and we turned to each other. We're like, buy like a ring shop or something. And we're like, okay, like I'm about to leave. What's going on? And that led into a whole conversation of lifestyle, cultural norms, hashkafa, where do we see ourselves, goals. And pretty much by the end of that trip, which was that night, we knew we were going to get married.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what advice would you give to someone who's in a or who suggested to someone that's long distance, or who's willing to consider a long distance relationship, or wasn't willing to consider that? What advice would both of you give? And we'll start with you, Meir.
The first advice I would give is, if what you've been doing up until now isn't working, maybe consider something new. There's a lot to be said for long distance relationships, and not to say that it's easy, because it's not easy. You know, your person's not there. You also do have a bit of a disconnect between the person as a human being and the person as the phone person you're speaking to. And that definitely came through. There were a lot of things, and then trying to even when we were even trying to discuss it, led to a bit of a big fight. That was one of the reasons why the first few days weren't going so well, is because I was trying to say that, and I really just said the wrong thing at the time. So I would say, as a starting point, go for it. At least try it. If what you've been doing up until now hasn't been working, then something needs to change, because we know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If your current activity isn't producing results, then go for it. Try that. Then I would say take it one day at a time and lean into it. There's no right way or wrong way of doing it. The main thing is that you make it your own. You make sure that you can connect, and you're very honest with yourself on it. There's a lot that can happen different from in person, because in person, you're always trying to keep up a facade. And especially because in general, you're dating a few dates, maybe 1 or 2 dates a week and things like that. It's very easy to have that facade up almost up until 6 or 7 months in, because, it's very easy to get yourself ready, psych yourself out, and a lot of times you're able to hide a lot of yourself. When you're in a long distance relationship, that falls away, because after 2 months, if you can continue having conversations with each other after that, they have to be real conversations, or both of you just get bored and move on, because there's no real reason to connect to this person if it's just like, oh, I'm just going to like have fun with you. At some point in time, like, you as a human just get bored. So if it becomes really real, then it can become the most beautiful thing. And that could be what you're looking for. If you are really struggling with a shidduch, this could be something that can definitely help. So that's why I say, like, lean into it. You know, if it's not something you've tried before and you're waiting, like, lean into it and then give it like a really good shot, and don't take other people's advice on it or other people's like unwanted suggestions. If it's your relationship, it's your relationship, and ultimately you get to have a say as to how that works.
Cheers to that. There's no harm in trying. There's no harm in trying if something hasn't been working. Feel excited, wondering, well, what can happen if I try something else? Thank you.
Yeah, pretty much along those lines. Like I said before, had been working to kind of make my like dating, I guess for lack of a better word, requirements more concise. And when people said to me, oh, how are you doing long distance? I'm like, wasn't one of my requirements that he had to be in the US. Like, I never thought in a million years that he would be across the globe. But when I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, this person and I can make this work. Well, let's give it a shot. Like, if it wasn't one of the things that I was adamant about, because there's only so many things that I was able to be, I guess, adamant about, then let's see what happens. And it worked out. And really, the fact that you were across the world, like, led us to be able to have a very open communication. A lot of conversations took place that for a lot of people didn't take place till later on, or even once they were married, when I spoke to some of my friends, because they didn't need to. We had to talk about a lot of cultural norms. That was very difficult. Like, hashkafically, we probably are the same way, but those play out very differently in different countries. And that was a lot of getting used to, but it was nothing that we weren't able to figure out. And we also covered it, I think, from the beginning. Because I was in grad school, I needed to be here for a little bit of time. So Meir knew from the get-go that, like, hey, I'm here. I'm open to relocating afterwards, but right now I need to be here. So it was never something that we were like closed off to or surprised by or anything like that.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing. And as someone that felt like they tried every avenue and things weren't working, obviously BCM, before the common era of Meir, what hope would you give to someone who's looking for it, who feels like, I've tried everything. Is it going to happen? I don't know what else to do. What words of encouragement might you give them?
Hashem's got your back. Hashem hears your tefillot. Hashem knows what's going on. He is not absent from any of this. And it's really, really, really difficult. Everyone has things going on in their personal lives. I think when it comes to dating, it's just the whole world thinks it's their business because it's something they can see. But Hashem's got your back. Hashem knows exactly what the plan is.
Love that. Yum. Have that with your coffee this morning. Thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for sharing your beautiful story of hope.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for watching another episode of Stories of Hope. If you're running to download JSwipe and you get engaged, you better let us know if it's because of this episode. Otherwise, if you have any further comments or questions, you can either write them in the comment section below if they're for Tali and Meir, or you can email us at soh@meaningfulminute.org. We love hearing from you. Thank you for your support, and thank you for being a part of the Stories of Hope family.